The tall crystal towers of the Illyrian capital shimmered under the gray skies. It should have been a day of celebration. Instead, silence hung in the air like heavy smoke. Flags were lowered across the city. The people walked slowly, heads bowed. Even the fountains, usually bright with floating lightstones, were dark. Inside the royal hall, Princess Cerixa stood still as the generals gave their final report. "The Battle of Varanus is lost," General Tyrek said, voice low. "Commander Lyra's squad was overrun. Her signal went dark. We... We believe she was taken or stopped," Cerixa said softly, raising one hand. The hall went quiet. Everyone looked at her. Her purple robes flowed behind her like the wings of a bird in mourning. Her crown sat heavy on her head, not from gold, but from sorrow. "She's not dead," Cerixa said. The room remained silent, but doubt hung in the air like a cold fog. Cerixa stepped down from her throne. "My daughter would never fall without a final word, without a fight so loud the stars would shake. This silence, this is not her end. She was last seen near Sector R9, Tyrek offered carefully, but the Zarnok control that region now. Even our satellites can't scan through their jamming field." "We must keep searching," the princess said. Ty hesitated. "We have already sent 2 search parties." Neither returned. A long pause filled the room. Cerixa turned away, walking toward the tall window behind the throne. From there, she could see the wide landing platforms, the hangars, the military ships lined in rows. Somewhere beyond those skies, her daughter was alive. She had to be far across space. The skies above a ruined moon lit up with a flash of blue energy. A small craft broke through the clouds, its hull scratched and dented, paint burned away in parts. It wasn't flying straight. It limped through the air, coughing smoke, then slowly landed on the outskirts of a quiet Illyrian outpost. Guards rushed forward, weapons ready, expected a Zarnok scout, or worse. But when the door opened, 2 figures stepped out. One was tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in metal armor that didn't match any known Illyrian design. His face was rough, with a short beard and scars that spoke of many battles. His eyes scanned everything around him with focus and calm. He carried a strange-looking weapon across his back. The other figure was shorter, thinner, but unmistakable. Commander Lyra. Her armor was torn, her face was pale. One arm hung uselessly at her side, wrapped in blood-soaked cloth. But she stood, tall. "I need to see my mother," Lyra said in a voice that cracked with pain and pride. The guards lowered their weapons. "Wide-eyed, get the medical team," one of them shouted. "It's Hertz, the princess's daughter." Back at the royal hall, alarms sounded. Princess Cerixa turned sharply as her advisor ran in, breathless. "My lady, your daughter, ... she's returned." Time froze. Then Cerixa ran. She didn't wait for guards. Didn't wait for formality. She raced through the golden halls, past the stunned nobles, through the gates, and across the sky bridge to the royal med bay. There, she saw her daughter lying on a recovery bed, already being tended to by Illyrian healers. Cuts lined her face. Her armor had been peeled away. But it was her, breathing, alive. "Lyra," Cerixa whispered, falling to her knees beside the bed. Lyra smiled faintly. "I told you I'd be back." Cerixa took her daughter's hand and held it tightly. She couldn't stop the tears that streamed down her cheeks, but her eyes moved drawn to the man standing nearby. The stranger, the human. He stood quietly, watching from a respectful distance. His armor was different, tough, practical, clearly human-made. His eyes were tired but alert. He looked like someone who had fought too many battles and still didn't trust peace. Cerixa rose slowly and... "Who are you?" He stepped forward and gave a small, stiff bow. "Commander Jackson." Terran Defense Corps' Terran," she repeated. "Earth," Lyra said weakly from the bed. "He saved my life, Mother. I wouldn't have made it without him." Cerixa looked at Reeve again. There was no pride in his face, no arrogance, just quiet strength. He didn't try to take credit, Didn't even smile. What were you doing? In Zarnak territory? She asked him. Crash landed during a recon run, Reeve replied. Found your daughter surrounded. Decided not to leave her. Simple words. But something in his voice told her it hadn't been simple at all. How many days? Sarixa asked. 17, he answered. Fought our way through, minimal supplies, enemy all around. Her voice cracked. He gave a small nod. She never gave up. Neither did he, Sarixa realized. That night, news spread across the empire. The princess's daughter was alive. And not only that, she had returned with an alien by her side. A human. From the lesser-known world of Earth, a soldier who had crossed deadly ground to bring her home. The people whispered in the streets. They watched the skies. They spoke one name over and over, the human. And in the shadows of the High Council chambers, not everyone was pleased. The royal city of Valeris was alive with whispers. The return of Commander Lyra spread across the empire in hours. People rushed to public holoscreens. News ships hovered above the capital. Everyone wanted to know, how did she survive? Who was? The human beside her? Was he truly the reason she came back? Inside the royal palace, the mood was tense. Princess Sarixa stood at the edge of her daughter's recovery chamber, watching as Lyra slept. The healers said she needed rest. Her body was damaged, her mind exhausted. But Sarixa stayed at her side, unwilling to leave again. Across the room, Commander Jackson Reeves sat quietly in a chair. He didn't speak much. He just observed everything alert. Quiet and calm. He wore no royal clothes, only his battle-worn armor. He refused comfort, refused healers. Every movement he made was careful, like a man still in enemy territory. When Lyra finally opened her eyes again, she looked first at her mother, then at Reeve. I told you, she said weakly. He's the reason I'm here, Sarixa reached. For her daughter's hand. You don't need to explain yet. But Lyra shook her head. The council won't wait, and they won't understand unless they hear it from me. An emergency meeting of the Ilarian High Council was called. 12 robed figures entered the ancient chamber nobles. Military leaders and royal advisors. They sat in a half-circle around the royal dais. Sarixa stood at the center, Lyra beside her, supported by a cane. Reeves stood slightly behind them, silent and still. The room buzzed with energy as the counselors stared at the human. None had ever seen one up close. Some were curious. Others were clearly uncomfortable. Counselor Varric, an old general with sharp eyes, spoke first. We honor the return of your daughter, Princess. But we must understand. How did she escape Zarnak territory? And what part did this outsider play? Lyra took a breath. Her voice was firm, though her body was still weak. My squad was ambushed. We fought hard, but we were overwhelmed. I was the last survivor. Gasps filled the room. I ran for days, hiding in ruins and caves. I thought it was over. But then his ship crashed near my hiding spot. A human ship. Alone. Reeve said nothing. He didn't need to, I warned him. To leave, Lyra continued. But he stayed. He built traps. He fought Zarnak squads with weapons I've never seen. His tactics were strange, predictable, but they worked. We traveled together, survived together. Eventually, we found a way out. Counselor Varric frowned. You're saying a human saved a royal commander of the Ilarian army? I'm saying he's the reason I'm standing here now, Lyra replied. A long silence followed. Then Counselor Rinna, a noblewoman with a cold voice, spoke up. With respect, Commander, how do we know he didn't lead you into danger in the first place? Humans are not part of our alliance. Their species is still young, primitive. Reeve raised an eyebrow, but remained quiet. Sarixa stepped forward. He crossed enemy territory without support to save my daughter. That is not primitive. That is loyalty. Rinna turned to Reeve. Do you speak for Earth, human? Reeve finally looked up. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. No, just for myself. You came here alone? I didn't plan to. My mission was recon. Zarnak. Tech field hit my ship, crashed before I could send a signal. Found your commander injured. Didn't seem right to leave her. Why should we believe you? Rinna asked. Reeve looked around the chamber. You don't have to. His answer surprised many. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't trying to impress them. He was just ... honest. Counselor Varric leaned back. He may be telling the truth. Honor does not make him one of us. Sarix's voice rose, firm and royal. Then let him earn his place. The council turned to her in confusion. In Illyrian law, she continued, any outsider who saves a royal life may take part in the rite of standing, a tradition older than this council. Let him face our test. If he fails, he leaves. He succeeds. ... He stays. Shock passed through the room. That right is sacred, Varric said. Then let it decide, Sarixa replied. Not politics, not fear, truth. Later, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyra sat beside Reeve on a stone bench. The night air was cool, and stars shimmered above them. You don't have to do this, she told him. I know, Reeve replied. But I want to. Why? She asked. He looked at her. Because they don't know us. Because someone needs. To show them what humans are really made of. She smiled faintly. You're not like the soldiers I've met before. Neither are you, he said. They sat in silence, two survivors from different worlds, and above them in the black sky. Beyond the stars, war still burned. The royal arena was being prepared. For the first time in many years, the ancient grounds would host the rite of standing. Warriors from across the Illyrian Empire had stood on that ground to prove their honor, their strength, and their right to be heard, but never before had a human entered the ring. The news spread fast. Crowds gathered. Soldiers whispered in their barracks. Nobles watched from high balconies, curious and doubtful, in the quiet of the palace. Commander Jackson Reeve sat beside a glowing fire pit in a small chamber reserved for warriors before their trial. He wasn't used to such attention on Earth. He was just a soldier, survivor of many battles, but never a hero. Now, in a foreign world. He was something more. Commander Lyra stepped into the chamber, her footsteps light. She was no longer wearing her battle armor. Instead, she wore a simple robe, showing her scars without shame. You should rest, she told him. Reeve glanced at the fire. Camp mine's too loud. She sat beside him. The flames flickered. Between them, casting soft shadows on the stone walls. You don't have to prove anything, she said gently. He gave a small shrug. I know, but I want to. Lyra looked into the fire. Do you know what the rite of standing truly means to my people? Not really, Reeve admitted. I only know it's a test. It's more than that, she said. Trust. About showing your soul through action. The council won't see you for what you are unless you stand in that ring. If you fall, they'll think I was saved by luck, not by a man worth respecting. Reeve was silent for a moment. You're not worried I'll lose? I've seen you survive worse, she replied with a small smile. But you'll have to fight differently here. The rite doesn't test weapons alone. It tests willpower. Reeve chuckled. Then I guess I've got a chance. The arena lights glowed bright. Thousands of spectators filled. The stand's military officers, common citizens, scholars, and nobles. Even the outer cities watched by broadcast. In the center of the arena stood 3 large doors. Behind each was a different trial. The challenger had to face each one alone. There were no rules, only survive. Princess Sarixa sat in the royal booth, her eyes fixed on the arena floor. Her daughter sat beside her, tense but proud. And then the gate opened. Commander Jackson Reeve stepped into the arena. The crowd fell silent. His armor was patched together from his crash, mixed with pieces of Illyrian gear. He carried no blast, only a curved Illyrian blade strapped to his back and a heavy shield crafted for the trial. He stood tall, scanning the space with steady eyes. A booming voice echoed across the arena. Trial 1. The Beast of Skora. The left gate opened and a massive creature stormed out, covered in dark scales, four-legged with razor-sharp tusks and red eyes. The beast roared and charged. Crowd gasped. Even seasoned warriors had fallen to the Skora. Reeve didn't move. He waited until the last moment, then rolled aside, slamming his shield into the beast's leg. The creature stumbled. Reeve rose fast, struck once across the shoulder, then backed away. He didn't try to overpower it. He used speed. Timing. He dodged its charge again and again, wearing it down. Finally, as the beast grew tired, he leaped onto its back, driving his blade into its neck. The Skora fell with a crash. The crowd went silent, then erupted into cheers. Trial 2, the Blades of Thought. This time, Reeve entered a maze of mirrors. Inside, drones flew with flashing lights, firing short stings of energy. It wasn't about fighting, it was about thinking. He moved carefully, watching for patterns. Every few steps, the mirrors shifted. He touched one, then ducked as a dart shot past his head. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, the mirrors slid open. Then Reeve walked out and touched. The crowd roared again. Trial 3, the Flame Pit. The final gate opened. Inside was a narrow bridge over a pit of rising fire. On the bridge stood a warrior, one of the Illyrian guard, masked, armored, and waiting. Reeve stepped forward. The guard bowed, then attacked fast. Their blades clashed. Sparks flew. Every swing was powerful.
Ow.
Every move tested Reeve's balance. Below them, the flames rose higher. The Illyrian was stronger, but Reeve was smarter. He led the warrior to one side, then kicked low, forcing the guard to stumble. He disarmed him, then placed the tip of his blade at the warrior's chest. The masked guard raised his hand in surrender. The trial was complete. Reeve walked out of the arena, covered in sweat, dirt, and cuts, but standing proud. The royal booth stood as one. Even the council rose in respect. Princess Syrixa gave a nod. Commander Lyra smiled, her eyes shining. The crowd chanted his name, Reeve, Reeve. Rave later. That night, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyra and Reeve sat together again. "You did it," she said softly. He looked up at the stars. "Not just for me," she smiled. "You've given my people something they didn't know they needed." Reeve tilted his head. "What's that?" "Hope," she said. "Hope that we're not alone in the universe. There are others worth trusting." He looked at her, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Above them, yes, the stars shined silently, watching, waiting for what came next. Even after the cheering had ended and the arena lights went dark, the name Jackson Reeve stayed on every lip across the Illyrian Empire. He had faced the ancient trials and passed every one. Humanist species, once called primitive, had proven himself stronger, smarter, and more honorable than many of the Empire's own warriors to many. It was a moment of history. To others, this was a threat. Inside the golden walls of the High Council chamber, 12 powerful figures sat in a tight circle, their faces serious. The atmosphere was heavy. Lightstones flickered softly above them. Counselor Varric, the oldest general in the Empire, stood first. "We cannot allow this human to remain here." "He earned the right," said Counselor Tyron, a younger voice. "It's one of the few who supported Princess Syrixa. He passed the trials," added another. "But that does not make him one of us." Varric snapped. "He is still an outsider. What message does it send if a human becomes a figure of respect in our own empire? What does it do to our order? Our pride?" The council fell silent. Then Counselor Rinna spoke. "And what of the princess's daughter? She returned with this man at her side. Some say she gives him more trust than her own people." Varric nodded. "That bond must be questioned." Unspoken thoughts filled the air. Doubts, fears, even jealousy. "Tomorrow," Rinna said coldly, "we vote." In her private chamber, Commander Lyra paced back and forth. Her long coat brushed the floor as she walked. Her injuries were healing, but her heart was unsettled. "Let them try," she said. "Let the council say what they want. He passed their sacred right. He saved me. He earned this." Princess Syrixa sat nearby, watching her daughter. "They're afraid," the princess said softly. "Not of him, of change, what he represents." "They should be," Lyra replied. "Because things must change." Syrixa nodded. "Agree." But this empire doesn't shift easily. You know that? Lyra turned. Then we'll push it together. Meanwhile, Jackson Reeve walked alone in the palace courtyard. The stars were out again, bright and endless above him. He felt their stare soldiers who watched with respect, and others who looked with quiet dislike. He didn't care much about politics. He hadn't come here to be accepted. But he could feel something was coming. Something bigger than the trials. Bigger than him, he leaned on a stone rail, staring up at the moons. Footsteps approached. Lyra stood beside him. "You're the most talked about person on this planet," she said. He gave a dry smile. "Not sure that's a good thing." "There. Voting tomorrow," she told him. "I figured. They may try to force you off this world, or worse, declare you a false hero." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I didn't save you for rewards, and I didn't fight those beasts for their approval." "I know," she said. He looked at her. "But what about you? If they vote me out, does that cause problems for you?" Lyra shook her head. "Let them try. I came back from death beside you. I'll stand beside you now, no matter what." He looked at her closely, and for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to feel something warmer than caution. Trust. Real trust. "Then we go together," he said. The next morning, the great assembly hall filled with nobles, warriors, and representatives from across the empire.
Ow.
The air buzzed with tension. Holocams hovered above, broadcasting the moment live to every colony. At the front, the 12 counselors stood. Princess Seraxa and Commander Lyra faced them directly. With Jackson Reeve by their side, Counselor Rinna stepped forward first. "We thank the human for his bravery. But we cannot allow emotion to blind us. The council must decide if he is a guest or a danger to our structure," Counselor Varick added. "Today we vote not on his past actions, but on whether his presence threatens the unity of our empire." Murmurs filled the hall. Then, one by one, the council members spoke their votes. Some said, "Remove him." Others said, "Let him stay." When the final vote was cast, the result was even 6 to remove, 6 to allow. The hall went silent. Everyone turned to Princess Seraxa. "The deciding vote is yours," Rinna said. As tradition demands, Seraxa stood. Her voice rang strong. "This man crossed enemy territory, saved my daughter, faced our trials, and never asked for anything in return. He is not a threat. He is an example of what can happen when courage meets unity." She paused. "My vote is that he stays." The crowd erupted in gasps, then applause. Reeve turned slightly to Lyra. She gave him a small nod. Later that evening, the princess called a private meeting with Lyra and Reeve. "You must prepare," she said. "The Zarnak are already moving again. They've heard of your return. They will strike harder than before." Lyra straightened. "And we strike back harder." Reeve spoke. "We need a new kind of strategy, not just old formations. We'll need speed, unpredictability, human style." Seraxa smiled. "Then, you'll command a joint task force. Ilarian and human tactics combined. The first of its kind." Lyra looked at Reeve. "Ready for another fight?" He smiled. "I was born for it." And so in the heart of a proud and ancient empire, something new was born, not a treaty, not a temporary alliance, but a partnership forged through blood, survival, trust. War still burned across the stars, but for the first time in years, the Ilarian people had a reason to believe, ... they might just win. 3 weeks passed. During that time, Commander Lyra and Commander Jackson Reeve trained together daily. They worked in the Royal Combat Yard, far from the noise of the capital. It was quiet except for the sound of swords clashing, boots hitting the ground, and orders being shouted. They were building something new, something the Ilarian Empire had never seen before. A combined strike unit, made of both Ilarian soldiers and humans. The human forces were small, only a few ships from Earth had made contact since Reeve's trial, but they brought with them creativity, raw courage, and strategies the Ilarian High Command didn't understand. Lyra watched one human soldier use smoke bombs and decoys to confuse a Zarnak drone. Another rewired a fallen enemy's blaster and turned it into a trap, Your people fight like they've got nothing to lose, she said to Reeve one night. He looked at her and smiled faintly. That's because most of us didn't grow up with anything to protect. Now that we do, we hold on tight. At the same time, far from the capital, in a dark corner of the Zarna-controlled sector, a new plan was being formed. Zarna Commander Threll, tall armored warlord with glowing red eyes, watched a screen filled with moving images of Reeve. And Lyra, his claws tapped the control panel with slow, steady beats. They grow stronger, said his second-in-command. But still weak compared to us, Threll growled. Let them form their army. Let them build hope. We'll crush it all at once. He turned toward the burning star map. Send a signal, prepare our fleet, and target their heart Valeris. Back at the palace, the princess's council met once more. This time, the room was calmer. Less fear. More respect. Reports say Zarnak fleets are moving near the outer rings, Counselor Tyron said. We may have only days before they attack. We'll be ready, Syrexa answered. Commander Lyra and Commander Reeve will lead the defense. Some eyebrows raised, but no one objected. The room had changed. They had changed. Lyra and Reeve entered, both dressed in battle armor. Side by side, we've mapped their approach path, Lyra said. We'll meet them at the Sylar Ridge. Narrow skies. Our smaller ships will have the advantage there. In your new team? Syrexa asked. Ready, Reeve replied. They may not look like much, but they'll surprise the enemy. The princess smiled. And may the stars guide your blades. The night before the battle, the strike team camped at the edge of Sylar Ridge. The moonlight lit up the mountains, and the air was cold and still. Reeve sat near a small fire, sharpening his blade. Around him were soldiers from two different worlds, Larian and human. Some laughed. Some cleaned their weapons. Others stared quietly into the sky. Lyra joined him, sitting on a stone beside him. Do you ever get scared? She asked. He looked up. Every time? She raised an eyebrow. You don't show it? I learned to hide it, he replied. Fear's not the enemy. Letting it control you is. She nodded slowly. I was scared too. I'd die out there alone. But you didn't, Reeve said. You fought, you lived. That's what matters. They sat in silence, watching the flames. Then Lyra said softly, If we don't make it back, we will. He said quickly. But if we don't, she continued, know that I trust you, a more than most I've ever fought beside. Reeve nodded. Same here. At dawn, the Zarnak fleet arrived. Dark ships filled the sky like storm clouds, their engines roaring. They opened fire on the ridge, but the Ilarian defense shield held strong for now. Commander Lyra led the air fighters in fast, hard strikes. Her ship danced between enemy lasers, hitting targets with sharp precision. Meanwhile, Reeve led the ground team, using tight mountain paths to trap enemy scouts and destroy tanks with ambushes. His team moved like shadows, quick, deadly, and unexpected. The Zarnak didn't understand how humans fought. They weren't bound by standard formation. They were wild, creative, unpredictable, and it worked. But halfway through the battle, the enemy released something new, a Zarnak heavy class. Destroyer, 3 times the size of a normal ship, dropped from the sky. It landed in the valley with a deep, earth-shaking boom. From it came a massive warby state-legged. It's armored and controlled by an AI core that jammed nearby tech. Lasers failed, shields broke. Communications went down. Reeve and Lyra regrouped. At a damaged bunker, breathing hard, blood on their faces. This thing's breaking through our line, Lyra said. We can't hold it off. Reeve stared out at the creature. It can't beat it with machines. But maybe we can outthink it. He grabbed a pack and pulled out old Tools EMP mines, scrap metal, and a signal disruptor. Give me 15 minutes, he said. I'll make it blind. You'll never get close enough. I don't need to get close, he said. I just need to get clever. Reeve moved fast through the burning field, laying traps and decoys. He tricked the beast's sensors into following false heat signals, leading it into a narrow rock path. At the end of the path, he waited, holding a handmade detonator. The moment the war beast stepped inside, He pressed the button. The mines exploded in a flash of blue light. Sparks flew. Metal cracked. The creature stumbled, legs breaking apart. Then Lyra came down from the sky in her fighter. Firing the last missile into its exposed core, the beast fell. The battlefield fell silent. Then the Zarnok ships began to retreat. They had lost the Ilarian, and human alliance had won together. The sky over Siler Ridge had turned calm again. Ashes from the battle still drifted in the air. Parts of the land were blackened with fire. But the silence now was not from Fiata, was the silence that came after victory. Across the broken valley, Ilarian soldiers and human fighters worked side by side, helping the wounded, clearing the wreckage, and building new defenses. No one cared where someone was from. They had fought together. They had bled together. They had won. On a high platform overlooking the valley, Commander Lyra stood with her mother, Princess Saraxa, and Commander Jackson Reeve by her side. The princess looked down at the busy field, where once only war had raged. "I never thought I'd see this," Saraxa said quietly. "Our people and yours standing as one." Reeve nodded. His arm was wrapped in bandages, but he stood tall. "We didn't win because of strength alone," he said. "We won because we trusted each other." Lyra looked at both of them. "Can't stop here. The Zarnok will return. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next month. But they will. We need to be ready." Saraxa turned to them. "Then let's prepare for more than just battle. Let's build something stronger than fear." 1 week later, the United Council Hall opened its doors in Valeris for the first time in history to both Ilarian and Wa human leaders. Flags of both worlds hung from the ceiling. Soldiers, diplomats, scientists, and commanders filled the room.
News.
Cameras hovered overhead, broadcasting across systems. Princess Saraxa stepped onto the platform, her voice firm and clear. "Today we take the first steps into a future no one expected," she said. "For too long, we believed our empire stood alone. We believed no one beyond our stars could understand our ways. We were wrong." She paused. "We were saved by one who came from a world we once overlooked. A human, a soldier. A man who fought, not for power, but for honor. And my daughter, who stood by him, not as a commander, but as an equal." The hall applauded. Then Reeve was called to the stage. He walked slowly, but confidently. Dressed in a new uniform marked with both the Terran Defense Corps and the Ilarian Royal Guard, he faced the crowd. "I don't speak like a diplomat," he began, "but I know what it means to fight, to lose, and to keep going anyway. I didn't come here to lead. I came here to help. And now that we've fought together, I think we can build together too." More applause followed. He stepped back, and Lyra joined him, placing a hand over her heart. "This alliance will not be built in a day," she said, "but let this be the first stone." In the weeks that followed, change came quickly. A joint military force was created. Human and Ilarian engineers worked together to develop new hybrid ships, strong and smart. Ilarian medical science was shared with Earth, saving thousands of lives. Human tech specialists taught the Ilarians how to use flexible code systems, giving them better control over AI and defense systems for the first time. Earth and the Ilarian Empire worked not as strangers but as partners, but in the quiet of a palace garden. Away from the noise of meetings and plans, Reeve and Lyra stood. Together again, just as they had after the trials and after the battle. "Does it feel real yet?" she asked him. He gave a small laugh. "Some days. Other days I wake up and still think I'm in that cave with you, hiding from Zarnok scouts." She smiled. "We've come far. You pulled me out of the fire," he said. "And I guess I did the same for you." Lyra looked at him carefully. "We didn't just survive together, Jackson. We became something stronger than just soldiers." He nodded. "I know." For a moment the world faded around them. Not war, not politics. Just a people who had found something rare in the middle of chaos, respect and something deeper. She reached out and touched his shoulder. "Wherever this alliance goes, I want to face it with you." He placed his hand over hers. "Then let's face it together." That evening, A new monument was placed in the royal plaza of Velar, as it showed two figures standing back to back, one Illyrian, one human, both holding their weapons down in peace, not in war. Beneath the statue were engraved simple words in both languages. Together, they stood. Together, they changed everything. In the stars beyond, the Zarnok Empire still watched. But now they saw more than one enemy. They saw a united force, and they feared it. And so the story of the alien princess's daughter, who returned from the edge of death with a human at her side, became legend not just for her people, but for two worlds. Not because they were the strongest, but because they chose to fight together. When no one else believed they could,